you don't want to let it be, if you can't set yourself free, take your mind into another place and time, free yourself up to find the universal mind. The universal mind. The universal mind.
Live from Hollywood, it's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Mark Summers, and now, here's your host, Dan Harary.
Dan Harary. Oh, that's me. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. I am Dan Harary. How are you? We just saw the strangest presidential debate in the history of America, and I'm a little bit shocked and stunned about how that went down, but we don't want to do politics on the show, so we won't. But anyway, great seeing a bunch of you recently. Contact in the Desert. That was a lot of fun. We had between 2,000 and 3,000 people there. I didn't get a final head count, but it might have been about 2,500 people. And that was terrific, man. We had a lot of fun. Contact in the Desert. For those of you who didn't go there this year, try to make plans to go for next year. It's the biggest event of its kind, and all your favorite people are there. Big news for me personally, my newest book, 5, so let me find it back here. Brand new book, 5, just came out the other day on Amazon. It's a dark fiction murder mystery about, oh, hello, middle-aged road rage. We met at CITD. Okay. This is a dark fiction murder mystery about a serial killer who is reincarnated across time, and I don't know where it came from. It's a novella because it's a short book. And to me, this is would be a really great episode of Night Gallery. If anyone out there remembers the Rod Serling show, Night Gallery, I had this in mind. This would be about a really excellent hour anthology TV episode for any producers who might be watching right now. So that's my book, 5. It's on Amazon, of course. My other book that just came out less than a month ago, My Paranormal Life. Ghosts, goblins, poltergeists, UFOs, angelic voices, coincidences. And my favorite part of this book is the dedication page, which reads, "To my mother, Joan, who believes not one of the stories in this book." And she called me laughing hysterically. She thought that was the funniest thing she'd ever read in her life. So this is my other brand new book, My Paranormal Life. Check it out on Amazon. Help a starving writer out if you wouldn't mind. I'd appreciate it. And of course, my greatest hit of all, After They Came, my UFO book. I'm working on the screenplay right now for this book with a gifted screenwriter in New York. And I'm hoping to pitch that to some Hollywood producers very soon. So hold on to your hats and get your money ready for some popcorn, because After They Came is going to be a movie before I pass away, hopefully. Tonight we have a wonderful show, a very dear friend of mine, and I'm going to read his bio right now. Earl Grey Anderson is MUFON State Director of Southern California, a STAR team member, and an executive member of MUFON's ERT, which stands for Experiencer Resource Team. I can't speak English tonight. I'm so bummed out about Joe Biden. Earl also sits on the board of directors of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance and was one of our original founding members. For those of you people who don't know, myself and Stephen Bassett, 1 year ago exactly, created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And we have about 150 to 200 members now. We bring together UFO experiencers and researchers and people like Earl with Hollywood producers, writers, and directors. And hopefully we're going to be helping to nurture the next era of motion pictures and TV shows and documentaries. So that's what Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is about. Check it out, hollywooddisclosurealliance.org. Back to Earl. Earl has hosted MUFON's experiencer workshops at the last 2 MUFON Symposia, and he'll be hosting 3 different events at the upcoming 2024 MUFON Symposium in Dallas-Fort Worth. That's coming up in a few weeks. Earl has personally investigated over 1,000 UFO reports. That's pretty cool. And he specializes in experiencer and high-strangeness cases. We've all seen Earl on dozens of radio shows, podcasts, TV shows, such as Ancient Aliens, my partner Steve Bassett's show Paradigm Shift, Travel Channel's Storming Area 51, the season finale of Motor Trend Television's Motor MythBusters, Cars versus UFOs. Earl, I haven't seen that one, but I need to check that one out. And Earl is also the featured host of a new show, which I've enjoyed. I watched it recently, The Alien Disclosure Files. Earl has been featured in numerous documentary films. He was a featured keynote speaker at Oregon's 2023 McMenamin's UFO Festival. And just recently, a few weeks ago, he was a featured speaker and a panelist, including appearing on the panel that I hosted, the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance panel, at the recent Contact in the Desert event. We didn't get too much time to hang out because we were so busy there, but Earl's one of my best friends. I love this guy. So, Race, let's bring in Earl Grey Anderson. There he is.
Hey, how are you doing, Dan? So good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, my brother. I'm bummed, man. I know we don't talk politics.
No, I had a relative. He used to irritate all of us because he had this saying. He would say, "Jolly up." Now, jolly up now.
I like that. Was he British? Was he British?
Up,
was he British, Earl? Because it sounds like
no.
British guy.
He thought he was. He dealt in antique prints and spent a lot of time over in the UK. So
I like that. I'm going to say jolly up.
Certain nomenclature, jolly up.
Earl, I'm going to steal that from you. Cheerio, pip pip, jolly up. I like that. I think that's funny.
It's like the Monty Python. The Holy Grail, where the guy's arms and legs are being.
It's just a wound.
It's merely a flesh wound.
A flesh wound. Yeah, jolly up.
It's like jolly up. Same voice.
It's exactly right.
It'll work.
It's exactly right. All right, so
we'll talk about UFO reports and stuff tonight.
Let me just throw you.
I was so happy to be on the panel with you.
Thank you. Dan. I'm so glad you were able to help us out with that panel. That was really good. And I watched it. I don't know if you've seen the replay, but that was really good. It was a really good session. And we got some good questions from the audience. I was very pleased with that.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know you.
It was very smart audience, I thought.
Give us a little bit about your childhood, where you're from, where you grew up. And then once you do that, then we'll segue, of course, into your wonderful mom stories. But just give us a big picture of where you're from, where you grew up, what you did as a kid, that kind of stuff.
You want me to tell the origin story again, huh?
I love that story, but yeah, of course.
I love telling. Well, okay, it kind of starts with my mom. Okay, I happen to have an old picture of her. Let's see if I can get the lighting right. There you go.
There you go. That's good. Yeah, she's an attractive woman.
that was my mom. Her name was Betty Grace Maiden, and it's kind of funny when I have to fill out forms for Social Security or whatever. It's like your mother's maiden name, and I have to put in Maiden, right?
And they think it's a mistake.
Yeah, but it gets people laughing, so that's a good thing, I guess. But anyway, she moved out to California to follow her brother, the one that came up with a jolly up bit. Okay.
Okay. My favorite uncle. Yeah, go ahead.
And but my mom, she grew up in Muscatine, Iowa. It's a small town along the Mississippi River. They have Mark Twain's old cabin is there. And it was kind of the area was famous for they had like freshwater oysters, that they had a pearl industry, a pearl button industry, not just pearls, but they were buttons. And they all kind of came from that little town. And so the industry was all kind of built around oysters and pearl buttons. But when my mom got a little bit older, I mean, she had she had one story that she told that was about an intelligent fireball. and she just called it ball lightning. But I believe that my mom, at about age 16, actually had an anomalous encounter with an intelligent, like, orb. I don't always like that word, but it was like a 4-foot round beach ball sized ball of sparks. And it perused her sister, it perused her, it came in and out of the screened-in porch that they had.
Right.
And it waited for her in this cornfield, and my mom ran out to it, and it was like it waited for her like a puppy dog. Anyway, my mom, I guess that just this phenomena for some reason is born into my family. And my mom thought nothing of that story. She just thought of it as ball lightning, but this thing lasted a long time. But anyhow, my mom got a job with law enforcement when she, I think that she had just turned an adult, 21, I guess. And they needed somebody to watch the drunk tank over the weekends in Muscatine. And they gave her that job, and that gave her the background that she needed. When she came to California, she somehow or another, and I don't know how, maybe because she was with the ladies Mason group, the Daughters of Job. I guess that they kind of farmed. He farmed from the either Masons or Mormons. Okay. But she got a job with Howard Hughes at Hughes.
Yeah, he was a Mormon.
Aircraft.
Earl, I believe Howard Hughes was a Mormon.
It's kind of near the. Was he a Mormon?
Yeah, he was a Mormon. Yeah, he was.
Maybe. I don't think he really practiced, but
yeah, right. But I think his parents were.
He liked to hire Mormons.
There you go.
Usually it was Mormons, but my mom wasn't a Mormon. She was a Methodist, but she didn't drink. She didn't smoke. I mean, I do have a picture of her with a cocktail. that was.
We won't tell. We won't tell anyone. Yeah, we'll keep that going.
She was pretty trustworthy.
Okay.
Yeah, and she had this background in law enforcement, so she finds herself in this office next to Howard Hughes's office. Now, this was 1954, 55 in that area, so he was already a germaphobe.
Yes, he was.
So they would.
Earl, you're freezing a little bit.
Talk over at clearance. She had to, because she took shorthand notes for all these meetings. Oh, can you hear me? Are we still messing up?
You're freezing for a second here and a second there. Some
3-letter alphabet.
Are you getting any error messages?
Oh, man, that's not good.
Okay, I'll keep going.
No, I don't see anything. Everything seems okay. I don't have anything open here, so I don't know why.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to keep trying.
There you go again.
In here. Around 1963, I was 5 years old, and I sat down for breakfast, and my mom starts talking to me like I was an adult. And I think that this was just on her chest, and she thought I was safe to talk to, that I was young enough that I would forget about it or just not understand. But it really caught my attention. She was talking to me like her peer. She said, well, son, everybody knows about that I work for Hughes, but I had a very strange element to my job. And she said the word element. She used big words. She said, they sent me out once to the middle of the desert with a little security detail. And she said it was the middle of nowhere. And the only thing that was out there was this concrete bunker. It was kind of low slung to the ground. And I wondered, did they take me to look at tools or a tractor or what? She thought, she kind of giggled about it. She said, I really didn't know why I was there. They didn't tell me. Well, she said that they proceeded to unlock this thing. It had like locking mechanisms, and that there was an elevator. That was the only thing that was in there.
Right.
This little building with an elevator. So she said that they got in there, and she thought, well, of course, it's underground, obviously, wherever I'm going, maybe a couple floors. She said that this elevator kept going, and it went with it went really quickly. It had quite the clip to it while it was moving. She said that she felt butterflies in her stomach, or she felt vertigo. She felt dizzy from this thing.
Right.
So she said that when the doors of this opened up, that there was this little bustling city under the desert. And she used the word, she said, a mile under the desert. I mean, I don't know that she was exaggerating, but it just came out of her mouth. She said it was a little city under the desert. And she said, son, I worked there. They had people that stayed there for long periods of time, scientists that were working on top secret projects, German rocket scientists. And later on, I found out that my mom was friends with Werner von Braun. So I guess he was down there.
That's crazy.
But anyway, she said that, well, son, they had restaurants and, a guy that could do my hair in the barber shop. And the way she said that, it made me think that it was the oddity that a woman was working there. I think that she might have been one of the first Cold War women that were working in our DUMBs, the deep underground military bases. That's the acronym.
Maybe, right.
So the way she ended this, it was getting time for me to go to school, and she would usually drive me and drop me off. So she just said, well, Earl, I just want you to know that I know that you're interested in life in outer space. And I was 5 years old, and I was already obsessed, looking for the space people. And she said, I just want you to know that it's a real thing, that we have already made contact with other intelligent races in the universe. We're not alone. And she said, you're going to hear about UFOs and all that. But that really is a real thing. It's a very real thing, son. And then it was like, that's time to go to school. and that's my origin story. I mean, I lived with that for many years. Over the years, I would try to get her to talk more. Sometimes she would, sometimes not. But I guess I hit sort of a nerve when I was 10 years old. I know you want me to tell this part. It makes me. Of course,
it's your greatest hit story.
Laugh. Go ahead, I've told this so many times. Well, something possessed me when I was 10 years old. I was in 4th grade. Our teacher, Mrs. Russell, she was kind of a dramatic teacher anyway. She made films with our class that she entered in film festivals and stuff. I think she even won a film festival with a film she did. But anyway, it was kind of a loose class. It was an open class. They were trying this open, half of the year I spent working on an animated film called Rabbit Ears and claymation, but mostly cut out. It was like South Park,
Okay, you were ahead of the.
But anyway, all the
curve,
kids, their parents, their dads, really were working. Yeah, but all the other kids, their dads had cool jobs. They were all working for Aerojet Rocketdyne or Lockheed Skunk Works. And what's that tattoo your dad has? The little skunk, and it's like, shh, it's secret, And that was all the kids, in that class. So I'm talking about, we had to show and tell. What do your parents do? And I talked about my dad's landscaping job, and the other kid had been talking about his dad working on this Saturday. And then I said, but wait, let me tell you about my mom. It was an afterthought. I wasn't gonna get it. And then I told them what I told you, pretty much verbatim, Dan. I mean, I used the language that I remembered her using. I mean, it was imprinted, You know how they imprint baby ducks? Well, that was my imprint.
You have some memory. You have a very good memory.
So I told the class, I did total disclosure, and I do know a few people that were in that class they're still around. There's people that will remember, and so anyhow, the teacher called a parent-teacher conference with my mom, and she went in, and I was playing on the monkey bars, waving at the space people, probably, is my hobby back then. And she comes out from the conference looking pretty stern. Very quiet. We get to the car, and then she starts talking when she opens the door. My old blue Pontiac station wagon we had. She said, son, I'm not mad at you. I want you to know, first of all, I'm not mad. And then it's just like, oh, crap. What have I done? And I haven't gotten in any fights. I did tease that one girl. So she gets in, and she continues the conversation. She says, son, now you were not lying. You told the truth, and what I told you was true. But I had to tell your teacher that you have a very good imagination and that you were making things up.
Wow.
I heard about your little speech for show and tell, and people don't know about underground cities in the desert. and they certainly don't know about alien life in the universe.
Wow.
And then she's trying to start the car, and she gets the car started, and then she looks at me, and I'll never forget this because it was just like this shocked look. And it's like, how did you remember? I mean, her voice was quavering. You were only a baby. And then she says, son, you can't ever talk about this ever again. Your mother could get in trouble. She's trying to drive. It's only a mile to home, you know. I signed things that could never talk about this. It's highly top secret, son. Your mother could get in trouble. And she's driving, and she looks at me and she says, your mother could go to prison. So you can't ever talk about this ever again. She does the zip thing, you know.
Right.
And that was my childhood, you know. That was 5 years of age, you know, I get disclosure. 10 years of age, I get you know, censored. And, well, maybe that's good, because, you know, you still have to deal with that stuff now, you know. It's like,
well, you really are
arrow transparency congressional thing.
You're a child of you're a child of a parent, as am I. You're a child of you and I have this in common. You're a child of a parent who is very much aware of.
Breaking up. I can't.
Oh, can you hear me? Hello, Earl.
Yes.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can hear you now.
Okay. You and I are both children of parents that were involved on the military side of ufology. Your mom with Howard Hughes,
yes.
the Howard Hughes and Werner von Braun, you know, in underground, God knows where, talking about aliens. And my dad, my dad's inventing, you know, military drones based on UFO technology.
Well, maybe they knew each other.
Well, my dad used to go to Was your mom ever at White? Was your mom at White Sands Missile Range? Do you know? Because my dad was there. Apparently, he was there all the time. So maybe I'm
pretty sure she did work at White Sands.
They may have met.
I think that she was gone out there.
That's really great.
Yeah.
How did you make your way to?
They apparently have an underground. Apparently, they have an underground city in White Sands. Or they did anyway.
Maybe that's where our parents met. How'd you make your way to MUFON? How did you discover MUFON and get involved with?
No.
How'd you get involved with MUFON, Earl, and make your way into the MUFON inner circle there?
Well, when my mom passed away, and, you know, she to her deathbed, she said that, you know, that was all true. You know, she said that was all true, but she wouldn't tell me anymore. And when she passed away, that was the end of my golden ticket. I knew stories like Bob Lazar and certain things like that, you know, Phoenix Lights I knew about. But I knew that I was never going to find out from my mom that she had been talked into this, and she was gone.
Right.
Original book. And I'm kind of a born skeptic. So a lot of times I would not be impressed with what I was reading. But I read Leslie Kean's book, you know, The Pilots, Generals. That book came out, like, I guess 2009. I read it 2010. Mom died in 1999. And there was just a period of time where I just was confused. It confused me, you know, because all the greatest scientists were saying there was nothing to this stuff. So, but MUFON kept coming up in the books that I respected. You know, I would read a book that was silly and, you know, is like, nah. But then, you know, I would read a lot of, you know, MUFON seemed to come up in the scientifically investigated case. They're still absurd. You know, I mean, every good UFO story, I mean, I think that they love a cosmic joke. And I look for that little, you know, telltale signature of absurdity. It is in all the best cases. But MUFON, they investigate it properly. And I think that, you know, when I went into MUFON and I started working with them, I think that it was like a fish to water. I think that we both needed each other. You know, I truly do.
I think you found each other at the right time. Earl, we have to take a break for commercials, and then we'll be back on the other side. Race, let's rock and roll.
This September 6th through the 13th, join with like-minded souls in the experience of a lifetime on the Royal Caribbean Ovation of the Seas as we travel from Seattle to Alaska. Internationally renowned researchers, investigators, experiencers, authors, holistic healers, contactees, spiritual luminaries will sail on an extraordinary voyage of transformation. This cruise will explore UFOs, alien contact, cover-ups, ancient mysteries, the paranormal, holistic healing, and spirituality. Experience engaging lectures, one-on-one sessions, private, custom-tailored excursions, and a nightly UFO watch. The cruise is booking up fast. Go to contactatsea.com and be sure to mention the UNX Network when you book. That's contactatsea.com or phone 336-749-1219. That's 336-749-1219.
This is Margie Kay, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our KUNX show hosts, staff, listeners, and viewers for making us number one on Paranormal Talk Radio.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UNX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
And welcome back to Paranormal Tonight. I'm Dan Harary, and let us bring back little friend Earl Grey Anderson. There he is. Earl Grey
That
Anderson.
is paranormal. I just magically appeared out of nowhere.
You did.
Wow,
All right,
wow.
Earl, I have a question. So I have a
Sure.
question for you. You are a multi-time experiencer. How do you define the term experiencer, like in general terms, and then tell us about some of your personal experiences you've had with let's call them creatures from beyond the norm, let's say.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I was kind of obsessed with the space people when I was a little kid. Another thing was I seemed to be obsessed with orbs, but I called them bops. And I think a lot of them would just be the reflection of light from watering that was going on out front of the house. But it seemed like there's this familiarity to me somehow. And I don't know, I don't know that there were actual orbs involved, but I bop, that was one of the first things I would say, as a little baby. And another very early memory is climbing up the monkey bars of the swing set my dad had built. He was very good with woodworking, and he built the very nice swing set out there in the backyard. I would climb up to the top, and eventually what I'd do, I took some of the leftover wood and I hammered together a little rocket ship and drew what I thought was a reasonable facsimile of a hyperdrive or whatever. I was, I don't know if they even used that word yet, but, it had controls, and I begged my dad to drag this thing up to the top of the swing set, which he did. It was a different world back in 1963. It's a different world.
I know.
And then a little earlier, this was probably 64. I think I was about 4 years old. But I would climb up those monkey bars and I would sit there and I would wave and sing at the sky. And my mom, I remember distinctly, she opened up the kitchen window and she yells out, "Earl, who are you waving and singing to?" And I didn't hesitate. I said, "I'm waving and singing to the space people, Mom. It's the space people," and I would keep doing it. And it was like this habitual thing. I mean, where did that come from?
Right.
I mean, it's just
That's the question. That's the question. Earl, do you think, was it from the story she told you when you were 5? Or did you have experiences when you were a little kid?
No, this was before.
Wow.
This was before that.
How did you? How could you have known? How could you have known?
I have there's one weird memory that's emblazoned in my memory, and it's maybe my first memory.
Go ahead.
Usually, if you have a traumatic experience, that you remember it. It
Right.
could be a young age.
I agree with you.
So we were traveling cross country in the same blue station wagon. Back then they used to fix stuff. Now it would have been trashed. But we were driving cross country, and we were in Salt Lake City, if I'm not mistaken. And my mom was driving, and a big bus had thrown a bunch of dirt in front of the windshield. So she swerved onto the shoulder, except there was no shoulder. There was a 40-foot embankment. Again, we're in the desert, the desert again. So the car was, I remember the car flying like 0 G, and my dad was very religious. He's shouting. He was sitting next to me in the back seat for some reason, and he's shouting, "Don't worry, Jesus will save us. Jesus will save us." And Mom's just screaming. Now I remember this moment where my dad at that time, this is a long story, but he was working with his brother. That's why he wound up a landscaper. His brother was a famous heart surgeon, and they had a company that they put together called Corco, and they built the first heart-lung machine to allow for open heart surgeries.
Okay.
So my dad's job was building the machines. My uncle designed it with another engineer friend, and then my dad would take it to various hospitals and do demos for them.
Okay.
So that was one of these trips, and he made it into a family trip. But I remember, we had this huge metallic piece of machinery, and the bungee got down. No people knew about bungee cords yet. So what I remember is looking out the window, and I was told the door was shut, it was locked, and the window was rolled up. But I remember looking and seeing this blue sky with one cloud in it. And there's this moment of time that I can't account for. The next moment that I remember is I'm on my back and I'm looking up at the car, which is upside down, and the wheels are spinning around still. Now, in this accident, my mother, she broke her back, but it was not like a break that would, her spinal column was intact. It was just, bad discs for life. My dad just had a little scratch on his forehead. I was untouched. It was like somebody had lifted me out of that car through the window and gently laid me down in this pile of weeds that were just sort of bedded down. And my dad found me. He saw me. I was looking straight at the wheels, and he thought I was dead. I remember my dad crying and yelling, but I wasn't touched. And I always thought, well, maybe it was angels were our little ET friends, because they seem to sure have been ever present in my life from the space people on. So I look at that story differently now. I always knew it was a miraculous thing, but who takes people through solid objects? Because that window is rolled up, and where I had been sitting in that car is where the heart-lung machine landed, and it was made out of it was many, many pounds of cold steel with sharp edges on every corner.
Wow. And
that was where I was sitting in the car. So make of it what you will. Somebody wants me to be here.
That was
or
divine.
else I'm just a lucky bastard,
That's divine intervention. How old were you at that time?
I was 3 years old.
And you remember
tell you
remember that story vividly. You remember that really happened. It wasn't a dream or something.
What
really
I remember,
happen, right?
I remember all of what I just told you, and especially that moment of weightlessness of my dad going, Jesus will help us. Jesus will save us.
Maybe he did.
And then
maybe that was Jesus. He came and helped you.
I don't know. It could be. I am a Christian, is how I relate. So I do ultimately give God the glory for stuff like that. But I think that he's got the people that he uses, and perhaps the non-people that he uses. What always kind of freaks me out is, how did I go through that window? It was still rolled up.
It's a great story. It's a really wonderful.
And I remember. Okay, and this is embarrassing. But I'll tell you a little bit more. I remember my mom was in the hospital, and my dad would take me out there and have me stand there and sing "Jesus Loves You" to Mom every day. She was on the second floor, and they coordinate her physical therapy with that, I guess. And this is the embarrassing part. I had just turned 3, but there's still no excuse for it. I was still not diaper trained. I would usually go and use the toilet, but I was still wearing a diaper. Okay. And my dad decided, I am not going to fuss with this. He said, Earl, we're going to get you big boy pants. Now I remember, and he had a lot of cojones. He put me on his shoulders, and I was still,
I know where this is going.
And we go to the drugstore, and he buys me underwear. And so all this stuff that's around that, so I remember those details. It's just like a movie, that plays back in my mind. And it's all meaningful. My mom was okay. My dad, God bless him, he was such a wonderful, good man. He was just a good man. I had wonderful parents. Their marriage wasn't easy, though. They fought like cats and dogs. My mom didn't like the religious stuff, and she liked Monty Python and stuff like that.
Right.
And Dad was a good Presbyterian.
How about some experiences you had as a young adult or as an adult? I know you've had experiences as an adult. If you want to move forward in time, what were some of those that you can talk about?
Well, Now you talked about multiple experiences that I've had, but as far as I know, I've had 4. And
that's multiple.
What I told you,
multiple.
yes, and then what I told you about the miracle when I was 3 years old. But I about 4 years ago, I was still working as a nurse. I retired because I have non-diabetic neuropathy. It's why I have to use a pogo stick, my little cane that I use. It's not, a style choice. I kind of had to I took care of lots, quadriplegics. I had a quadriplegic I took care of for 17 years.
Wow.
I took care of him until he sadly deceased. But I had to give up my nursing career. But it was sort of the end of my career. And I think that long exposure or close exposure to ETs or UFOs, that we have to be careful. It can cause physical damage. Nerve damage is what we notice.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of contactees that love their ETs, by the way, and are thrilled that they had their experiences. But it seems like there's a lot of people with MS. Lou Gehrig's disease is one, is a bad one. We just recently lost Paulino to that. He had been around multiple manifestation situations. And I think UFOs use the same type of manifestation. It's interdimensional. But I was on my way to work, 6:30 in the morning, driving down Winnetka Boulevard. You probably are familiar with it.
Sure.
And, it's 6:30 in the morning, okay, and I'm going to work a 12-hour nursing shift. Everything was normal. I'm driving along, and I see this strange V-shaped object hovering over this grade school. It's like a prep school for babies. What a cool thing. You know, send your little baby to, pre.
Right.
Anyway, it's first grade through sixth grade, I think. But this object is hanging like 30 feet off of the ground. And when I was maybe a good block and a half away from it, and I'm trying to figure out, well, how did these students hoax this? I bet that they're pulling a joke, Is this April Fool's Day? No. But I get closer and closer, and I'm realizing there's nothing that this could be tethered up on. It's not a lighter than air object. The thing looked heavy, like heavy steel. It was not a pretty UFO. It was kind of an ugly UFO, boxy looking, and not all lit up, but it didn't belong there. So now I'm starting to think like a ufologist. I'm going to take video, photos. I'm going to call MUFON, get STAR team members out here. Going to call the media, and I'm going to knock on doors because we need to get eyes on this. But the closer I get to it, it was almost like the Jedi mind trick. Their thoughts, I guess they planted them in me. I thought that I was thinking for myself. When I had my contact experience, and we can talk about that maybe, I don't know if we have time, but this is the most recent thing that I experienced now. I experienced the Oz effect, where everything becomes quiet. Time becomes dilated, becomes slowed down. And you sort of enter into kind of a hypnagogic state. It's very strange. Well, I was experiencing this. You couldn't hear sounds outside of my car windows. The other thing that was very strange is there was no other traffic on this busy thoroughfare. This was a Tuesday morning, but there weren't other cars on here. So I think that it was set up for me. I think that it was very intentional. Suddenly, when I'm maybe half a block away from it, the most important thing to me is to not be late for work. I felt irritated that I was seeing a UFO. I felt angry about it. It's like it's an ugly UFO, and I'm going to lose my job. And I didn't take photos. I didn't take a video. In fact, I started putting my foot down on the gas. Well, I get to where the school zone is, and I guess that I had enough of myself left there that I slowed down the car, and I do a shoulder check, and it's still there, all boxy and ugly, rusty looking, and defying gravity, 30 some feet above the ground, 35 feet away from me where I'm in my car. And I'm driving real slow, and I'm looking at it, and a very strange thing happened. Suddenly it looked like it was 10 times its original size and maybe a mile away, but yet it seemed close at the same time. I just jammed on my gas, and I got past it. And I kept driving, and it was still quiet, and I was still not under my own, I was still, I'm going to be late to work. Oh my God, ugly UFO. And about 3 miles out from it, I was near the 118 freeway. I start coming back into control of my own thoughts, and my neurons are finally in the way they're supposed to.
Right.
And at that point, I stopped my car, I go over to the shoulder. Of course, there's nothing there anymore. And I'm face palming, feeling like, my God, I'm trained for this. I'm like, I was just ready to be advanced to state director at that point. And I was thinking, I am the worst ufologist in the freaking world. I'm horrible.
Exactly.
How did that happen? But now I've what I realized, I think it was a teachable moment. I think that it was to show me, you can train for this all you want, and you can treat it like a science project, but just know we're aware of that, and we're in control. It's not yours to, this isn't your planet. It's not your science project. You might think that you are the scientist, but actually you are the science project. And when I saw this, when this ugly UFO seemed like it was right in my face, it was the size of a football field, and still it was somehow a mile away. I talked with one physicist friend, and he was saying that you experienced and you described exactly you perceive with your eyes. He said what you were perceiving was that craft was leaving, and it was creating a gravity well in front of it that it was falling into. That's apparently the propulsion that they were using there. And what you describe as the warping of the actual universe. You saw that. It may have been creating a little wormhole, which I think they used the same principle to get into my old house, but that's another story. That was 9 years ago. So this is my life. I mean, it is a weird life. I don't know why it happened to me. The way that I think about it is why me, why not? Seems like they like to use families. They're interested in certain bloodlines. There aren't a whole lot of maidens left. It's me and my two kids. I have two cousins that I'm not really in touch with that live in Washington State. But I'm sort of, me and my kids and my grandkids are the end of that line. So now my son he's seen a UFO now.
Really? I was going to ask you. I
suspect the other kids probably will. It seems to run.
I was going to ask you if it's generational.
I was at the MUFON Symposium last year.
Right.
3 a.m. My son's calling me up, and he and his girlfriend are watching this UFO doing acrobatics in front of them, and they're both freaking out. But they're oohing and aahing. It was far enough away. Maybe it was for their benefit, to, hey, welcome.
That's great.
But that's the way this phenomenon works. You can say the same thing. We're second generation UFO experiencers.
We are.
And we've been taken along for the ride as well. It appears we're on the same train.
for whatever reason. Were you at Contact the last night? It was the Sunday night at the CE5 event. There was a UFO at the CE5. Oh. Did you hear about that?
Oh, cool. I think, I don't know.
I saw it.
I didn't hear about it. Did you see it? Cool.
Earl was
well,
beautiful.
you have that many people, and you have that kind of consciousness that's there.
It was there.
That does attract them. It's an interactive phenomenon.
We were out on the lawn near the pool. You know where it is. From 9 to 10:30 p.m. Serena DC, Michael Mazzola, and other people were doing the CE5, and we're I'd
Serena's a magnet. She's a UFO magnet. Yeah,
she is.
Yeah.
And about maybe 200 people were holding hands. We're looking up at the sky. Oh, Space Brothers, we love you. Show yourselves. We're open-minded. We love you. We want to communicate for an hour and a half. Now I'm thinking, Earl, I'm thinking this is very, very cool. But I'm looking at my watch going, I have a lot to do tomorrow. I have to do my talk. I have to pack. I have to get home. I have to wrap up the media room. And as all this is happening, all this is happening, I hear in the sky, there's a boom, like not a very loud boom, but it was like a boom. And then a beautiful V flew across 300 feet. 10 seconds, but it was rounded. Listen to this. It was a V. Rounded tips, vanilla white color with like a caramel gold ribbon. You know, like Baskin Robbins, like vanilla ice cream with gold ribbon. It was vanilla and gold.
Maybe it's their good humor
color.
truck.
It was like a Baskin Robbins, you know. And then underneath the wings, or out there were these 3 octopus suction cups under each wing, 3, and they were pulsing
Don't
like
buy
this.
that ice cream. I think they have maybe ulterior
tainted.
motives.
It was tainted, but it was they
Really?
they were pulsing. They were lit up and pulsing. And I'm looking at this
God.
UFO for 15 seconds, 10 seconds. I'm thinking that thing's alive. Whatever that is, it's
Wow.
alive. It was alive. It was part craft and part living being. It was like pulsing like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. That was my 4th UFO.
I've had oh, that's a good one.
That was a real good one.
I mean, I've only seen that one, and it was a fug.
Well, yours was a hell of a
UFO. It's
sighting
like,
you had,
thanks.
man. Wow.
But they have a good sense of humor. I think that yeah.
Tell us.
I gotta see them go. To infinity and beyond.
You saw it with your own eyes. Before we have about 10 minutes. Tell us that historic case that you've looked into that you were excited about. Tell us about that.
Oh, I was, I mean, we switched what we were going to do.
Whatever you want. Whatever we have 9 minutes. Whatever you want to do.
So I was ready to just go through a litany of MUFON cases.
Give me a good one.
I'm just going to read this case. All right. So,
yes,
giant
absolutely.
triangle over Camp Irwin, California. It is a historical case, but oftentimes the good ones are. People sit on these things for years. In 1984, I was at FTX at Fort Irwin, California. I was on loan to, and I removed the names, and I was on my way back to base camp when it started to get dangerous to continue due to darkness. It was like a firing range there at Camp Irwin. So my captain ordered me to pull over behind a tank that had been turned over due to live fire to guard him as he rested, a nice guy. So I decided to get on top of the Bronco for my own protection. I was afraid of snakes and stuff. So I kicked back. I was looking up at the stars, and I noticed a triangular object with 3 lights at each point. No sound. It was right over me. In my mind, I was questioning what the hell it was. Right after that, I remember nothing until my captain ordered me back in the Bronco. By that time, the sun was already up, to head back to camp. I remember nothing until the first sergeant called us all together and asked if anybody saw something strange in the sky last night, to see if anybody else was going to do so. And nobody did, so I decided to keep my hand down, and I've kept my hand down all of these years. I was afraid that if I rose my hand, something bad might happen to me, so I kept quiet. Years later, I noticed a small lump at the base of my skull, so one day I took out a small knife, and I dug at it until a small, dark object came out. It was the shape and the color. It was black. It was a black triangular shape. I showed it to my wife, then I put it in a Ziploc bag, and I threw it in my glove compartment of my truck, and I forgot about it. A few years later, my wife sold the truck so that she could buy a van, and the object apparently went with the truck sale since we both forgot about it. But I still have the scar at the back of the base of my skull. Now, where the 42-inch tall gray men come in was when I got back from FTX. I don't know exactly what happened because it was like a dream to me. But I was accosted by 6 of these strange beings, and from that point, I don't know what happened, but they took me right from my barracks. So it was just such a great case. And I have a couple of cases like with Mormon missionaries that were in the Camp Pendleton. Similar stories, a lot of black triangles, some pie-shaped black objects, a lot of abduction cases. And one of them was like the assistant to the Mormon bishop that was there on base.
Wow. Wow,
It's like
insane.
such a recurring story. And, there's always that flashpoint where the person sees a UFO or they see something anomalous. And it seems like that is where suddenly your life changes. It flips a switch. So it doesn't surprise me that he started having these visits from these grays. And he actually remembers being taken to a craft. and it's ongoing. He is a repeat abductee.
A repeat customer.
So
he's a repeat customer.
yeah, exactly.
Have you ever met?
Yeah.
Have you ever met with an experiencer who started to cry or was very upset? Upset. Tell me. Or a woman that had been impregnated and lost her fetus.
Do you know what? He's not going to care if I tell you, because he's out there telling his own story on the radio and stuff now. But our friend James, the wonderful artist, now
James
he and
Pike.
his girlfriend, James
yeah.
Pike, he had an encounter with a craft. It was about 4 years ago. He was very confused. Now he was taken, and he was the usual thing, is like the medical stuff, and but anyhow, it really, really scared him and really affected him. And he finally came forward and put in an ERT case to MUFON. I started talking with him, and he was like a deer in the headlights. He was all tears, and he just couldn't keep it together.
Wow.
He's one of the most together guys that I've ever met. He was able to get past that speed bump of ontological shock. And we used art therapy to get him past that. I kept working with this guy privately, after closing his case. Well, now he's sells that artwork.
There you go. You froze there for a while.
We both just heard.
Okay.
There he is.
You go. You're back again.
I think we were
All
right, just
yeah, we were in the Twilight Zone there for a minute. I think the aliens are beaming us aboard to come home, probably.
Yeah.
Do you have any cases lined
Well,
up?
I want to just put in a plug. Come out to.
Go ahead. Go plug.
I will say, come out to the MUFON Symposium in Dallas, Texas. That's this July. It's I think I'm getting there July 10th because I have to get everything going. But I'm doing a few events there that I'm hosting that are wonderful. If you go to MUFON Symposium 2024, all of that information will come up. I highly recommend you come out. There's nothing better than the MUFON.
Okay, and how do people join? How do people join SoCal MUFON? Tell us about that. Right.
You want to go to MUFON.com. If you go to MUFON.com, become a MUFON member, please. And if you're here local in Southern California, we do have live meetings. We have Joel Hynek speaking this Sunday, 2 p.m.
That's right.
If you go to SoCalMUFON.com, it's SoCalMUFON.com. All the information's there. We'd love to see you, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful meeting.
That's great. And how could people contact you, Earl, personally? What's the best way to get to you?
If you go look for Earl Grey on Facebook, that seems to be my main spot. It says Earl Grey. Doesn't have Earl Grey Anderson, just my two first names. And you'll see it says member of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which I'm very proud of, and state director of MUFON Southern California.
Excellent.
And I'm also on LinkedIn as Earl Grey Anderson.
That's great. Did your parents name you after the tea, after the British tea, right? You've been asked that your whole life.
No, you know the real story. That was my musician name.
That's right. I forgot.
But it is Earl Anderson.
Well, Earl Grey is that's a wonderful name. Jolly up, cheerio, pip pip, jolly up, Earl.
Jolly up, Dan.
Earl, thank you for being my guest. You always have wonderful stories. I love
Earl,
your mom with how. Too bad your mom didn't marry Howard Hughes. God,
all right, my brother.
You'd be set for life. Thank you very much. Check out MUFON Southern California. Check out the MUFON Symposium. Check out Hollywood Disclosure Alliance.org. We have a donate button up there. Please donate to our cause. We want to do live events and newsletters and award shows and all these wonderful things. Me personally, Dan Harary, author.com. Dan Harary, author.com. You can read about my various books. All my books are on Amazon. Next week, my friend Michael Mazzola will be my guest. He's an award-winning documentary filmmaker. He produced the film Unacknowledged with Stephen Greer which I just watched again the other night for the third time. And that's a remarkable movie. I mean, Dr. Greer starts crying. He's so upset by the fact that our government has kept this secret from us for 80 years. So Michael Mazzola, a week from tonight. And that's it, and that's all. Dan Harary, live from Hollywood, Paranormal Tonight. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys on the other side next week. Take care.